Welcome, ghouls. This is our 5th episode of Shrouded in Darkness, and I am your overly excited true crime obsessed host. Before we dive into today's case, I'll open with my disclosure. All the stories I share contain material I've personally researched. Some episodes contain disturbing material. Along with what I have researched, I'll share my own thoughts on the case. It is never our intention to offend or upset anyone. At Shrouded in Darkness, our goal is to educate, discuss, and bring fresh light to cases. Today's case is about a mother and daughter from Section, Alabama. Allow me to introduce you to Kimberly and Haleigh Culwell. Kimberly is a single mother to her 3-year-old daughter, Haleigh. In 1999, she meets the love of her life through a magazine personal ad. Barry Van Witten comes into the picture. After less than 6 months of dating, the two marry. And along with Kimberly's daughter, Haleigh, Barry brings with him his equally young son, Ethan. Together, the family of 4 live in a log cabin on a 40-acre farm. While Kimberly goes to her job at Cloverdale Manor Nursing Home in Scottsboro, Barry works at the sawmill on their property. To everyone on the outside, the family seems to be happy and content. The perfect blended family. Before we get any further, let's rewind a little bit to Barry's past. Neighbors describe Barry as being very quiet. He's a man that keeps to himself and someone that would rather live off the land. In 1988, and again in 1991, so many years before Kimberly, Barry is convicted of charges for receiving stolen property. Now keep this in mind because it will come into play later on. In 1997, Barry is married to his first wife and Ethan's mother, Michelle Townsend. One morning in December of that year, Michelle goes out for breakfast and never comes back. This is according to Barry. A week passes and her car is found near a wooded area. And then another 5 weeks later, Michelle's remains are found in a shallow grave in a neighboring town. Evidence shows that she was beaten and stabbed to death. Unfortunately, though, no one is arrested for her murder, and the case eventually runs cold. Now, let's fast forward to the summer of 2007, 8 years after Barry and Kimberly wed. We know Kimberly, who is 36 now, has worked at the nursing home for about 7 years. She loves her job and is well loved in return. Haleigh is now 11 years old. She's an honor roll student at Macedonia School, a very tight-knit school community, a class of maybe 20 or so kids. She would be starting 6th grade when the new school year begins. Ethan is also 11 years old and Barry is 38. From what I can tell, Barry still works at the property sawmill. No further details on Ethan, though. The date is June 21st. Again, this is in 2007. Kimberly goes to her job to pick up some papers and then plans on returning home. It's unclear if Haleigh was with her or not, though. During the drive home, Kimberly tries to talk to a friend on the phone, but the connection is too weak. So she promises to call the friend later on, only that call never happens. It's a full week later, on June 28th, when Kimberly's co-workers report her as missing, which I guess coincidentally means Haleigh is also missing. Barry is, of course, one of the first people to be questioned. He is the husband and stepfather, after all. According to him, Kimberly was going to leave him. So one day, she and Haleigh left the property, and he hadn't seen them since. He said they left in a white vehicle, possibly a truck or a van that had an Alabama license plate. He also states that he gave them $20,000 and that they may have gone to Montana. Real quick, I'm going to share a couple statements from the family that I found online. It's just a couple extra notes that I found interesting. From Pat Compton, who was Kimberly's stepmother, quote, "We feel like something bad has happened. She wouldn't have just left like this. She wouldn't have left her job," end quote. Then we have Dennis Witten, Barry's father, quote, "They're wasting their time. I'm not commenting about anything," end quote. I don't know about you, but that sounds super ominous. Really strange, right? So there was no evidence of foul play. Kimberly's truck was found near the property, but after a few weeks of nothing, the police do a more thorough search of the 40-acre property. They drain a pond, they bring in cadaver dogs, a helicopter does a search from overhead, but they really don't find anything helpful. Although there is evidence of some blood found on a hatchet, but nothing else is reported about this. I'm not even sure if they did an analysis of it. Now, unrelated to the missing case, while searching the house, police find firearms. And remember how I told you that Barry had been arrested a couple times? Well, because of that criminal history, he's not supposed to have any guns. So they arrest him on the spot. And a few months later, in September, he pleads guilty and is sentenced to 10 years in prison. While in prison, more comes to light about Barry's first wife's murder. A forensic chemist brings attention to some fibers and blood evidence that was found in their home. Of course, this is different from the home he shared with Kimberly. But the biggest help in this trial for Michelle's murder is the testimony of Jeff Young, who is a guy that was Barry's cellmate at one point. He shares details of the murder that he heard directly from Barry. How the couple had gotten into an argument, how Michelle threw something at Barry, how she threatened to leave him, and then how Barry killed her, cleaned up the mess, and then dumped her body. Finally, on September 24th, 2015, 8 years after his second wife disappears, Barry Whitten is found guilty of intentionally murdering his first wife, and in turn, he is sentenced to life in prison. All the while, he remains a suspect in the 2007 disappearance of Kimberly and Haleigh. But sadly, despite everything, we have no justice for them. Their case remains unsolved. Their whereabouts remain unknown. Before I wrap up this case, I'll share a few more interesting facts that I found while doing my research. The Whitten property is secured by 2 locked gates. So unless you have access to unlock that said gate, you can only get to the residence by walking. So this, in my opinion, kind of eliminates a lot of possibilities. Because remember, Kimberly's truck did somehow make it back home that day, or at least into the area. I've found few details on Ethan or where he was that day, and even fewer details on Haleigh and her last whereabouts. That's why I'm not sure if she was with her mom when she was running those errands that day, or if she was at home. I just feel like that's kind of strange, the not knowing. Which, I guess I have a few questions about the case overall. Obviously, Haleigh's part of the story, even Ethan's. But then, what about that $20,000? The money that Barry claimed he gave to Kimberly? Was there proof of the transaction? Were we supposed to believe he just had that kind of money lying around the house? And how about the fact that it took a whole week for anyone to notice she was missing, or anyone to report her? And it wasn't family or her husband that reported anything. It was her workplace, her coworkers. If Kimberly and Haleigh really were last seen on June 21st, then a lot can happen in a week's time between then and the 28th. Was Barry even accounted for during that time? Also, 40 acres is a good bit of land. Do you think they were able to successfully search that whole property? Or what do you think's happened to the property since then? It's been 18 years since the 2 vanished. Nothing else is really known. It's pure craziness. I've even looked at my same sources several times to see if I could find anything new. Nada. Which, speaking of sources, this case's research came from the Charley Project, AL.com, Southern Strange, and Times West Virginian. So have you ever heard any more details about this case? You know any things that could be helpful for Kimberly or Haleigh Culwell? Any thoughts on what could have happened? Let me hear from you. You can find us on Instagram at Shrouded in Darkness. Send us your feedback and show ideas, and maybe you could even be on an upcoming episode. You can catch next week's show, where we'll finally be leaving Alabama to discuss the case of Erica Hill. Thanks so much for joining us today. Until next time.